The woman's scream echoes through the marble corridors of the Domus Aurea. It is not a scream of pain, not yet. It is the scream of realization, the scream of someone who has just understood that the man she called husband, brother, son, or emperor has become her executioner. Nero does not flinch. He stands in the doorway, draped in purple silk that catches the torchlight like fresh blood. His fingers drum against the doorframe, a slow, methodical rhythm that matches the pulse of terror in the room. Behind him, the Praetorian guards shift their weight, their eyes fixed on the mosaic floor. They have learned not to watch too closely. Some things, even soldiers cannot unsee. The woman is Poppaea Sabina, beautiful, pregnant, beloved by Rome, and she is about to die. But not quickly, not mercifully. Nero does not believe in mercy, not for women who anger him, challenge him, or simply exist in the wrong moment of his madness. He believes in spectacle, in control, in the slow, theatrical unraveling of the human spirit before the body follows. What happens in the next moments will be whispered about for centuries. Historians will debate whether it was murder or accident, whether Nero kicked her in a fit of rage or simply allowed her to bleed out in silence. But the truth is darker than that. Because Nero did not just kill women, he perfected their destruction. Rome, 64 AD. The Domus Aurea, the Golden House, sprawls across the Palatine Hill like a gilded tumor. Its walls are plated with gold leaf. Its ceilings rotate to shower guests with rose petals and perfume. Its banquet halls stretch longer than entire city blocks, filled with wine fountains, mechanical birds that sing on command, and frescoes depicting gods in acts of divine carnality. It is a palace built not for governance, but for pleasure. And at its center sits Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, fifth emperor of Rome, heir to Augustus, adopted son of Claudius, and by his own proclamation, the greatest artist the world has ever known. He is 27 years old. His face is soft, almost feminine, with a weak chin hidden beneath carefully groomed stubble. His eyes are pale blue, the kind that hums with music and laughter. When he is not, doors are locked from the outside. Women disappear into private chambers, and the screams, when they come, are drowned out by the roar of lions in the courtyard menagerie. Nero's inner circle is small and ruthless. There is Tigellinus, prefect of the Praetorian Guard, a former horse trainer turned enforcer, whose loyalty is bought with blood and gold. He is the one who arranges the accidents, the falls from balconies, the poisoned wine, the sudden illnesses that claim inconvenient wives and rivals. There is Poppaea Sabina, Nero's second wife, a woman of such beauty that poets compare her to Venus. She bathes in ass's milk to preserve her skin. She wears amber jewelry and saffron-dyed robes. She is adored by the public, envied by patrician women, and utterly, fatally dependent on Nero's affection. And there is Agrippina the Younger, Nero's mother, the woman who murdered her way to the throne, poisoned Emperor Claudius to place her son in power, and now watches from the shadows as that same son plots her destruction. These are the women who orbit Nero's world, and each of them will learn the same lesson. Proximity to power is not protection. It is a sentence. The palace is a place of whispers. Slaves talk in corners, their voices low and trembling. They speak of the emperor's night games, private entertainments held in the subterranean chambers beneath the Domus Aurea, where torchlight flickers against damp stone, and the air smells of sweat, incense, and fear. They speak of women brought down in chains, their wrists rubbed raw, their eyes wide with terror. They speak of Nero watching, conducting, directing the suffering like a maestro leading an orchestra. But these are only rumors, or so the Senate tells itself, because to believe otherwise would be to admit that Rome, eternal, invincible Rome, is ruled by a monster, and monsters, as every Roman knows, belong in myths, not on thrones. It begins with a mother's refusal. Agrippina the Younger stands in the atrium of her villa, her hands folded across her chest like a shield. She is 59 years old, her face lined with the weight of conspiracy and survival. She has outlasted 3 husbands, 2 by natural death, 1 by her own hand. She has poisoned an emperor, manipulated a senate, and remembers the look in his eyes the last time they spoke. Not hatred, something worse, indifference. 3 days later, Agrippina accepts an invitation to reconcile. The meeting is to take place on a boat in the Bay of Naples, a private, neutral setting. Nero's messengers assure her of his genuine remorse. They speak of his love, his filial devotion, his desire to restore their bond. She does not believe them. But she goes anyway, because Agrippina the Younger has never fled from danger. She has always walked toward it, calculated it, controlled it. This time she miscalculates. The boat is elegant, cedar wood, purple sails, cushions stuffed with down. Nero greets her with a kiss on both cheeks. His breath smells of wine and honeyed figs. He holds her hands too long, his grip just tight enough to feel like a warning. They dine, they drink, they speak of trivialities, poetry, chariot races, the upcoming games. Agrippina watches his face, searching for the trap. But Nero is calm, almost serene. He reclines on a couch, plucking at his lyre, humming a melody she does not recognize. And then, as the moon rises over the black water, the boat begins to sink. Not quickly, not violently. Slowly. The ceiling above the dining area collapses inward, its lead weights crashing onto the cushions where Agrippina had been sitting moments before. Water rushes through seams in the hull, cold and relentless. Slaves scream. Furniture topples. The torches hiss and drown. Agrippina does not scream. She dives. Her robes drag her down like anchors, but she kicks free of them, her lungs burning, her arms slicing through the dark water. She surfaces, gasping, treading water, watching as the boat, Nero's gift, sinks into the bay. Around her, bodies float face down. Her attendants, her guards, the captain, all dead. She swims. For hours, she swims through the black, freezing water, her muscles screaming, her breath ragged, until her feet scrape against sand. She drags herself onto the shore, collapsing into the mud, coughing seawater and blood. She knows what this means. Nero has tried to kill her, and he has failed. She staggers to a nearby villa, demands entry, sent gown, exposing her stomach, the womb that bore Nero, the womb that made him emperor. The first blade pierces her abdomen, the second, her chest, the third, her throat. She collapses, choking on her own blood, her hands clutching at nothing. And when the guards return to Nero with proof of her death, he does not flinch. He does not mourn. He orders wine. He picks up his lyre, and he begins to sing. But Agrippina is not the only woman who will learn Nero's cruelty. Poppaea Sabina is next. She stands before him now, swollen with child, her hands trembling as she speaks. She has made the mistake of criticizing him, something small, something trivial. A comment about his late return from the races, a sigh when he spoke too long about his artistic ambitions. Nero's face is blank, and then his foot moves. One kick, swift, precise, into her pregnant belly. Poppaea gasps, her knees buckle. She clutches her stomach, her eyes wide with disbelief and then with agony. Nero watches. He does not call for physicians. He does not apologize. He simply watches as she bleeds. Poppaea Sabina dies 3 days later, not from the kick, though that is what kills the child, but from the infection that follows, the fever that turns her skin yellow, the convulsions that rack her body in the dead of night, the slow, agonizing rot that spreads from her womb outward, poisoning her blood, her final moments of consciousness. She dies in a room filled with physicians who can do nothing but watch. Nero is not there. He is in the theater, performing a tragic monologue from Euripides. His voice rises and falls with practiced emotion, his hands gesturing to an audience that dares not look away. When the news reaches him, whispered by a trembling servant between acts, he pauses only long enough to adjust his laurel crown. Then he continues. The funeral is a spectacle. Poppaea's body is not cremated, as Roman custom demands, but embalmed in the Egyptian style. Stuffed with spices, wrapped in linen, preserved like a relic. Nero declares a month of public mourning. He commissions poets to write elegies. He orders statues erected in her honor. He weeps publicly, dramatically, his tears streaming down deaths. A blade, a rope, a cup of hemlock. The women of Rome learn to lower their eyes when the emperor passes. They learn to speak in whispers. They learn that beauty is a curse, intelligence a death sentence, and independence the fastest route to a shallow grave. Nero's third wife, Statilia Messalina, survives only because she perfects the art of silence. She is beautiful, nearly as beautiful as Poppaea, but she never contradicts him, never questions him, never forgets that she is an ornament, not a person. She watches as other women are destroyed, and she says nothing. But the cruelty does not stop at the palace gates. In the aftermath of the Great Fire of Rome, the inferno that consumes 2/3 of the city in 64 AD, Nero needs scapegoats. He chooses the Christians, a strange, secretive sect that refuses to worship the emperor as a god. Among them are women, elderly matrons, young mothers, girls barely past childhood. Nero orders them rounded up and brought to his private gardens. What happens there is recorded by the historian Tacitus with a horror that transcends the centuries. Some are sewn into animal skins and torn apart by hunting dogs. Others are crucified along the garden paths, their bodies left to rot as decorations. Still others are covered in pitch and set ablaze, human torches to light Nero's evening banquets. The screams can be heard across the Tiber. Nero walks among them, dressed as a charioteer, reciting poetry. He pauses occasionally to adjust a torch, to critique the aesthetic arrangement of a crucifixion, to applaud when a victim's death throes are particularly dramatic. He is conducting again, a symphony of suffering. By 68 AD, the empire is fracturing. The Senate, once cowed into submission, begins to conspire. The provinces rebel. The legions, loyal for so long, declare new emperors. Nero's support crumbles, like the marble statues he once commissioned in his own image. He flees Rome, disguised as a slave, his entourage reduced to a handful of terrified freedmen. They hide in a villa 4 miles outside the city, listening to the sound of hoofbeats growing closer. The Praetorian Guard is coming, not to protect him, to execute him. Nero's hands tremble as he tries to lift a dagger to his own throat. He cannot do it. His courage, so abundant when torturing women, burning Christians, murdering torchlight, marveling at the beauty and wondering what kind of man could have built such a monument to himself. They do not see the bloodstains beneath the gold leaf. They do not hear the screams, still echoing in the walls. But the women remember. In the generations that follow, their stories are passed down in whispers. Mothers warn daughters. Grandmothers tell granddaughters. The names change: Agrippina, Poppaea, Octavia, Acte. But the lesson remains the same. Power does not protect you. Beauty does not save you. And proximity to a monster makes you prey. The question that haunts historians is not whether Nero was a monster. It is why Rome allowed him to reign for 14 years. Why did the Senate, those venerable men who had seen the glory of Augustus, the wisdom of Tiberius, the madness of Caligula, sit in silence as Nero murdered his mother, kicked his pregnant wife to death, and turned women into human torches for his amusement? Why did the Praetorian Guard, sworn to protect Rome, become executioners? Why did the people, those same citizens who once demanded bread and circuses, cheer as he performed in the theater while their city burned? Perhaps the answer lies not in Nero's cruelty, but in Rome's complicity, in the way power corrupts not just the emperor, but everyone who benefits from his rule, in the way fear becomes normalized, in the way atrocity, repeated often enough, becomes routine. Nero did not invent torture. He did not invent misogyny. He did not invent the spectacle of suffering. He simply perfected it. And Rome, eternal, invincible Rome, watched and did nothing. The bodies of Agrippina, Poppaea, and countless unnamed women lie somewhere beneath the Roman soil. Their graves are unmarked, their stories half erased by time and the convenience of male historians who preferred to write about battles and politics rather than the women who bled in the shadows. But their screams remain, echoing through the centuries, asking a question that has never been answered. How many women must die? before power is held accountable.